In this video, I'm going to talk about what it is like to rediscover who you are after abuse, when the old version of you no longer fits and the new version is still emerging. So if you haven't met me before, I'm Louise Ann. I'm a female empowerment coach and I specialise in narcissistic abuse recovery. This comes from my own healing journey and my experiences. So the first thing that I actually want to cover is that you were wounded before the relationship actually started. A narcissistic person will not go for battles that they are going to lose because they have too much pride. They think too highly of themselves. What they do is they find a chink that is already in your armor and they use that to worm their way inside, which means that the version of you that started the relationship with the narcissistic person was already wounded. There was already insecurities or limiting beliefs or fears or anxieties that they could use in order to gain control over you. Things that they could use to make you feel powerless and weak and that they could be your hero and that they could save you. They used wounds that were already there. So a lot of people are like, I wish I was who I was before I even met them. The reality is that version of you was wounded and allowed this person into your life. You don't want to go back and you can't go back. That version of you no longer exists. So what you need to do is you need to come to terms with the version of you that is no longer here. But actually, the version of you now, the version of you that is no longer in that relationship, is actually stronger and more powerful than the version of you back then. Because back then you allowed that person into your life. And so even though you might look back and go, yeah, well, I was really confident before they tore me down, there was insecurities, there was limiting beliefs, there was chinks in the armor that they took advantage of. And now you are stronger and more capable, even though you might feel like that version of you had more strength. The version of you now is stronger because you know that you wouldn't put up with that again. You know that you wouldn't tolerate that behavior again. The version of you now is battle-worn and hardy and might feel weaker, but actually you have a strength that you didn't have back then. So the version of you now needs to be the one that you put on the pedestal, not that version of you back then. So finding out who you are after abuse comes from accepting and forgiving all of the versions of yourself that came before you. Now, if you imagine all versions of you are kind of living within you. Yeah, so if you imagine all of these different versions of you are living within your heart, and these are all past versions of you from when you were a child, when you were a teenager and you were difficult, when you were wounded and you entered into this relationship, who you were during the relationship, who you were at the end of the relationship. All of these past versions of you are living within you. And all of these past versions of you existed and got you to where you are now. Now, you might not be where you want to be, but you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the choices that they made. Every single one of them made difficult choices that got you to where you are now. And you need to start being a lot more compassionate and forgiving of the past versions of you. It can be very easy to be critical and judgmental to our past versions of ourselves because we are judging their actions based on our current knowledge. They were doing the best they could with what they had. They were doing the best they could with the knowledge that they had. And simply because you have more knowledge now doesn't mean that you get to judge them using that knowledge. You have to be kind and forgiving and accepting that these past versions of you do not need more criticism. You don't need to continue to bully yourself because you stayed. You don't need to continue to bully yourself for behavior that you tolerated that you shouldn't have, because that version of you has already experienced enough hardship. They don't need that from this version of you now. So you need to come to terms with all of the past versions of you and be forgiving and be compassionate and be caring and love them the way that they deserve to be loved. When you accept all of those past versions of yourself and start to realize that actually all of them were doing the best that they could and all of those versions lived and got you to where you are now, and actually now isn't a bad place to be, then you start to appreciate them. The hardships that they experienced and the difficulties that they went through, you start to appreciate the strengths and that these past versions of you have. And you need to forgive certain versions of yourself, because there will be versions of yourself, you know, the one that stayed, and there will be the one that put up with the things that they shouldn't have, and there will always also be the one that hurt others in order to maintain the relationship with the narcissist. We're not the best version of ourselves when we are in that relationship, when we are in survival mode, when we are trying to appease the narcissist. We will hurt and we will isolate and we will be nasty to the people that care about us and love us, and we will push them away and we will be mean and we'll be nasty. And you need to forgive that version of yourself too. You need to forgive who you were in order to survive the relationship, and accept all of those parts of yourself and welcome them home and care for them and love them. And when you start to do that, you start to feel whole again. You start to realize that actually all of those parts of you were parts that you were trying to suppress, you were trying to deny. Actually, they all are a part of you, and they have all built the strength that you now experience. All of their experiences, all of their hardships have kind of layered one upon the other, and now you stand and you have all of that strength because of the strength of all of them combined. So start appreciating who you are and forgiving past versions of yourself. And then you need to realize that there is no right or wrong, but just exploration. When you are learning to discover who you are again after narcissistic abuse, there can be a lot of confusion over, is that actually something I like? Or is that something that I only like because they told me I could like it? Like, what part of my identity is me and what part of my identity is survival? And you need to stop putting things in such strict categories, or kind of separating all of that. You are multifaceted. There are multiple layers and versions of you. You can like multiple different things at the same time. And some of it might be stuff from the abusive relationship, things that you liked, things that you enjoyed, music that you liked, all of that kind of thing. And that can be a part of you. That can be an aspect of you. Simply because it is something that you discovered while you were in the abusive relationship, it doesn't mean that you now need to reject that part of you and push it away. So there are going to be multiple parts of you, and you get to explore. Go into this journey of discovering who you are from a point of curiosity, not judgment. There isn't a right or wrong. There is just simply experiences, and you get to try and you get to have all of these experiences, and you get to decide whether or not they're right for you. Be discerning over what you like and what you don't like, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what piques your curiosity, and go for that. Try it, see how it feels. It won't fit for everybody. It might fit for you. It might not fit for you, but until you try it, you're not really going to know. So take this opportunity to be curious and experience as much as you can. Explore different aspects of yourself and give yourself permission to be bad at things and to suck at things and to find things difficult. Just because something's difficult doesn't mean it's not for you. Just because something is challenging, it doesn't mean that it always will be. Allow yourself to be imperfect and explore with curiosity. So allow yourself to do that. In the next video, I am going to be talking about the real truth about narcissistic abuse recovery from lived experience. So the truth of it and what healing actually looks like. So make sure that you watch that.